Now in the mid-tier range, who are you looking at here? There's quite a lot in this one actually, but a lot more are like defensive. Well, the ones that I noted. Who did you go with?
Yeah, I've actually gone with Nick Chubb, which
The chubby cop.
it may be a little bit of a pod, but I think he's criminally underrated. He was second in rushing yards, only behind Derrick Henry, and he was behind a pretty putrid offensive line. So he's carried that backfield, and some of the running backs that he was rated lower than, like Aaron Jones, Zeke, I believe Kamara was a couple of spots ahead of him as well, who missed like a few games and clearly had a way worse season than Chubb. So yeah, I think 34 was far too low for Chubb. I think he should have been in the top, at least the top 5 running backs at the bare minimum, and probably definitely into that top 30 range.
It's an interesting one because it's kind of, I don't have the stats here, but it'd be interesting to look at their all-purpose, like scrimmage yards, so receiving plus rushing, because obviously someone like Kamara would have him in that stat, you'd imagine.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Also, the touchdowns, Chubb, because of his offense, was so much worse.
Yeah,
he would have had less
like Aaron Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also something that would go against him is he's got pretty good wide receivers, so they're likely to be targeted in the touchdown, in the red zone, as opposed to him. But no, I back it. I did see him down there. I thought for the second rusher, leading rusher in the league, that was pretty low. I don't think you'd see that too often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I wonder if the players take this into account, how the team went. I guess that's something you could put in those guys that you mentioned's favour, because except for Zeke, the other two, they went deep into the playoffs. But yeah, no, I agree with you there. That's pretty stiff. Rushing yards is what a running back's meant to do. So if he's the second best at it, basically, it's pretty yuck to be down there.
Yeah.
Especially when Aaron Jones is like 80% of his case is just touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which is like him running 5 yards or him being lobbed 5 yards. So, but yeah, no, fair enough. The one I picked in this one, I've actually just picked a whole position here. I've gone with the outside linebacker position. I just don't cop the order at all. Some of the other ones I did note down, though. I thought Jamal Adams was pretty stiff to be that low. I think he was in the 30s. I think he's a top 20 player in the NFL by just comfortably. Who else? We got Trodavius White, the cornerback from the Buffalo Bills. I think he was pretty stiff to be put down below Jalen Ramsey, even Richard Sherman, actually. And then I think Jimmy G. Jimmy G, what did you think of his position? I think he was in the 30s. Do you think that's too high or too low?
I don't know. I was pretty torn on that one because
I put him down.
His case is pretty much only the fact that he made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I put him down as overrated. Like, he should be lower. But then I looked at the quarterbacks below him, and it was kind of like Kirk Cousins was like in the 50s. Tanner's was in the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I guess you could understand it. I think Josh Allen was down at like 80, which I think was a bit stiff. But I can see the argument. It's pretty stiff to put a Super Bowl quarterback too low. But yeah. I just thought that one was an interesting pick. But yeah, outside linebacker. So in this little tier, these are the guys I was interested in. We've got Shaq Barrett at 32nd, the sack winner. And then we've got Zadarius Smith of the Green Bay Packers. Shaq Barrett was in at 32nd. Zadarius Smith was in at 48th. And I think these two were criminally dogged. TJ Watt was in at 25. He also probably too low. But Khalil Mack was at 19th and Von Miller was at 26th. If you look at tackles for a loss, Barrett and Smith were both in the top 4 in the league. And Von Miller was actually the second worst out of these blokes in that stat. And Von Miller was 22 spots higher than Zadarius Smith and 6 spots higher than Barrett. Barrett also had over double the sacks per game that Von Miller did. Von Miller only had 8 sacks. Shaq Barrett had 19.5. Zadarius Smith had 13.5. And then in terms of forced fumbles, Von Miller didn't have a single forced fumble. Shaq Barrett had 6. So how they've put Von Miller above Shaq Barrett when Shaq Barrett leads him in every single stat is a little bit beyond me, if I'm honest. So I think Shaq Barrett was pretty stiff to miss out on that top 20 there. If not, maybe not necessarily in the top 20, but the other guys above him should be below him. Maybe they keep him in that 32nd position, but I think that was pretty yuck. And then Zadarius Smith, his stats are pretty juicy as well. Out of the 6 players I did research for, I think he was 4th in sacks. Above him were Chandler Jones, Shaq Barrett, and TJ Watt, but he had more than Khalil Mack at 19th and Von Miller at 26th. And tackles for loss, as I said before, he was 4th in that stat in the whole league, whereas Khalil Mack had 9 less than him. He was down at like 70 for the league, and Von Miller was at like 40 for the league. So I think Khalil Mack and Von Miller were kind of, I don't know, their reputations basically got them the selection. I think they both had off years last year. I'm not saying they couldn't bounce back this year, but I think Zadarius Smith and Shaq Barrett in particular were seriously dogged to be that low. And TJ Watt as well was probably pretty unlucky to be below Khalil Mack. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say for those fellas.
Yeah, that does not make a lot of sense at all. They definitely cling on to past years with these selections, and it's a joke.
Yeah, Shaq Barrett in particular, like he genuinely beat Miller in every single stat, and then Khalil Mack only beat Shaq Barrett in possessions defended. So I think that means like swats and like tip-ons and stuff like that. So very stiff for Shaq Barrett, but I also think Zadarius Smith was a bit stiff to be that low. We're not the biggest fans of Zadarius Smith, but that's just because he makes so many plays every game that he, has a lot of time to celebrate and stuff. So that's probably saying how good he is, if anything. But yeah, that's it for the mid-tier. Anyone else that you thought was a bit dodgy in there or not really? By the way, I know you're a big Dalvin fan, but what did you think of Dalvin Cook at 21?
Oh yeah, he was another one that I thought Chubb probably should have been higher than as well. Yeah, I forgot to mention him before.
Yeah, I saw him there. I wasn't going to mention it, but I do remember that.
Yeah.
Now moving on to the long range picks. So the guys who they're still obviously high quality players, but down in the list. For this one, I know you've got a wide receiver. To be honest, wide receivers were the most controversial picks in this. They had Odell Beckham, Larry Fitzgerald, DK Metcalf, and then your guy as well, who, to be honest, I don't think any of them are in the same league. There's like a lot of different levels going on there. I went with the defensive end, but we'll come to me in a second. What do you think of your man?
Yeah, well, as you just said, there's about 6 wide receivers to choose from that are just in outrageous spots here. But I've gone with Davante Adams. I don't know how this bloke is still, like, no one cops him as an elite receiver in the media, and I don't understand it. Like, he missed a few games, but if you adjust, like, his averages per game, he's in that top 5 wide receiver class easily with your Hopkins, Julio's, Tyreek Hill's, Michael Thomas's, and yet he's all the way down at number 54. I just do not understand it at all. Like, we're talking...
I think he's 4th. I reckon he's 4th. I think Julio, Thomas, and Hopkins top
agreed.
3. And I reckon he's the next best. Tyreek may be more effective than him, but that's just because he's rapid. Like,
And Adams is like the only target in his offense, which means he cops all the attention from opposition corners. But the fact that he's within like 10 or 15 spots to Larry Fitz is just outrageous.
He's below Odell Beckham, isn't he? Odell Beckham was 56 or something. It was.
I think they were really close, but Beckham was above Landry, right? And Landry literally had him covered.
Yeah. Landry got dogged as well. He's not in the same conversation as Davante Adams, but even him to be below Beckham and near Fitzgerald's a bit yuck. But
there's a lot of yuck about
Tyler Lockett as well. He was. I think he was only 3 spots above DK Metcalf. It's like,
he was way better than Metcalf.
Yeah,
there's a lot of hype around Metcalf.
I understand the potential because he's like massive and fast, but yeah, not sure how he's in the top 100 players.
Yeah, but Adams was absolutely dogged. He himself will be filthy with that list.
Yeah, hopefully he's got something. He's going to have to do it again this year as well if the Green Bay Packers are going to be any good.
Yep.
They've
And he
got
will.
absolutely no one. Jimmy Graham left. Someone the other day just went down injured, like Devin Funchess or something. Funchess. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
who.
he's their wide receiver 3.
Yeah, so it's legit Valdez, Scantling, Lazard, and then there's Davante. So he's going to be copping triple teams each week.
Yeah.
But yeah, good luck to him. He's going to have to do it again if the Packers are going to be any good. But hopefully next year he's in the top 50 at least, if not the top 30. But yeah, it's pretty yuck that he's down there. I don't get it. I 100% agree with you. In my opinion, he's the 4th or 5th best. I can't think of anyone outside that top 3 who's better than him, apart from maybe Tyreek Hill. But yeah, that's very strange. Someone else I want to mention before I go into mine, Butter Baker of the Arizona Cardinals. He's a safety. He was ranked 95th. Absolute joke. Pretty sure he had second most tackles or something. Most tackle. Oh, I don't even know. I don't know his stats. I didn't do them, but like he is ridiculous. To be honest, the safeties in general, I don't know why they were so low. Like Jamal Adams was 30s. Minka Fitzpatrick was 40s. I think all of them should be a little bit higher, but that's just me. All right, so defensive ends. My man is Myles Garrett, the controversial man who got in a little bit of a scuffle. So the issue with Myles Garrett is he only played 10 games because of that suspension. So that right there is a reason to not have him too high. But the people who are above him, in particular, J.J. Watt, Calais Campbell as well, only one spot up. So Myles Garrett's 80th, Calais Campbell is 79th, J.J. Watt is 45th, and Jadeveon Clowney is 41st. And then in terms of the statistics, in an average per game, Myles Garrett averages the most tackles for a loss out of those 4 by more than double the next best. He averages the most sacks by more than double to the next best. And then he is second in forced fumbles. So I just don't really know what the old logic there is. It wouldn't surprise me if he came in about 40th, and then they were like, "Nah, that's a bad look for us. He got suspended. Let's bump him down."
I reckon that's it.
But nah, I guess the 10-game thing has to be factored in because although these averages are nice and stuff, you can't be the best player in the season if you only play half of it. But to me, but the thing is, JJ Watt played 8 games. Jadeveon Clowney played 13 games. So those were the kind of things that annoyed me most about this selection. But yeah, the JJ Watt thing in particular, 4 sacks in 8 games, 4 tackles for a loss, 1 forced fumble. I don't know how that's got you in the top 50.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
I don't know. And the thing with him, although he's been great in the past, with injuries, I don't think he's been good for 3 years. So I don't know how he's still clinging on to a top 50 spot. Like people who dominated the 2018 season, you kind of maybe understand why they don't want to kick them off the list completely yet. But JJ, well, I don't know how he's doing that. And then Jadeveon Clowney, he plays a little bit of a different position to the rest of them. He's a bit more of a linebacker. So he had I'm pretty sure he had a few interceptions and a few knockdowns and stuff like that. But yeah, just in terms of the stats for a defensive end, I think Myles Garrett's pretty stiff to be put below Calais Campbell, JJ Watt, and even Jadeveon Clowney. So yeah, that's my main men.
Yeah, I'll back that call as well. Myles Garrett, the weapon.
Yeah, when you watch Cleveland, every rush, it's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but when you watch NFL, you don't really notice the defensive line unless the commentators point it out because you're just watching the quarterback.
Yeah.
But yeah, Myles Garrett's someone you can't really not notice him, as we were saying, like Zadarius Smith. You can't go a game without seeing him cause absolute carnage. But yeah, that's probably it for the top 100. I could talk for days about it. There's a lot of guys that have been robbed or overhyped. But yeah, I don't want to be too negative on it because I know it's a player's vote, so there's obviously going to be flaws in it. There's no statistical logic to it or anything like that. But, it's just a bit frustrating when these players aren't getting the credit they deserve or getting too much credit. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that in an episode because I really enjoy the concept of the top 100. I don't really rate the execution of it, but so that
it's a miracle. Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, the ball is close. He's given him. He's given him. Peter Siddle's got a hat trick on his birthday.